Hello everybody. Today I visited a small cemetery on a hilltop in the woods of northern Connecticut. This has come to be known as East Granby Smallpox Cemetery, but for decades its story was, well, buried. Deacon Joshua Holcomb IV was born on the 2nd of February in 1723. He was born in Simsbury of the Connecticut colony. He married Martha Griffin about 1751. They were the parents of at least 5 sons and 5 daughters. He died on the 16th of April in 1784. It was the dreaded smallpox that killed Joshua Holcomb, and presumably his 1-year-old granddaughter Ruth Ford, when they died within a month of each other in 1784. 3 other of Holcomb's grandchildren died of unknown causes in the next decade. Caleb at age 2 in 1788, and his twin sisters Amarilla and Boadicea Holcomb, who were just 1 year old in 1793. They were all laid to rest in the Hilltop Family Cemetery on the east side of the Holcomb property. Joshua and Ruth died a difficult death. Smallpox was an insidious disease that marked even its survivors and patients' caregivers. It hit the youngest and the oldest hardest. Likely the whole extended family was exposed. Symptoms would not appear for 12 days, then fever, backache, headache, nausea, and malaise would strike, followed over 2 weeks by a rash and fluid-filled pustules on the skin that would rupture and scab over. The disease was very painful and was easily spread to caregivers, without whose help hydration and infection would set in. About a third of those who contracted the most serious form of smallpox unfortunately died from the disease. Among those who survived, scarring and blindness were common. Joshua would have known the dangers of this disease. It was a persistent killer until a cowpox vaccine, developed in 1796, provided immunity for 98% of those who received it. However, epidemics were still occurring with some frequency in 19th century Connecticut. The 30 smallpox-specific cemeteries in 29 Connecticut towns are testimony to the victims who were buried, usually in family plots in isolated places. After vaccination became an effective option, smallpox victims were more commonly buried in conventional community burial grounds. The remaining family members moved about a decade after the twins' deaths. The Fords moved to New York, and the Holcombs moved to Ohio, leaving their deceased infants behind. For 150 years, the headstones, one each for Joshua and Ruth, and a shared stone for Caleb, Amarilla, and Boadicea, marked the graves. The surface indications lead us to believe there were other burials there and likely headstones in the cemetery, but they remain unknown. In 1939, after a quarry developed nearby, the then owner, William A. Seymour, apparently gave permission to a local stone collector by the name of William Eli Talbot to remove the last 3 remaining memorials. The collector then cemented them into a cellar as part of the foundation for a building he used as his workshop behind the house he had built in 1935 in nearby Bloomfield. Photographs from 1932, now in the East Granby Public Library's archives, showed where the stones originally lay. The 1937 edition of the Connecticut Walk Book, a guide to major hiking trails in the state, published by the Connecticut Forest and Park Association, notes, "Of interest on Hatchet Hill, a smallpox burial ground of the 18th century with curious inscriptions." The removals did not go unnoticed. The 1940 edition refers to the site of a cemetery of the 18th century where smallpox victims were buried. Vandals had removed the headstones from time to time until not one is now left. Reuse of gravestones was not unknown in the past, and this description indicates that the practice was frowned upon by 1940. Legislation enacted since then which protects graves and historical burial grounds. Let's fast forward to 2013. The quarry, which was named Galasso Quarry, was looking to expand. It's the same quarry that developed in 1939 and neighbored the cemetery. It's the same quarry whose owner gave permission to the stone collector to remove the last 3 remaining memorials. When word got out that Galasso was looking to expand their quarry on the cemetery property, locals started asking some questions. Local historians started interviewing local people that were aware of the cemetery, aware of the headstones. Evidence of the cemetery's existence was given to the East Granby Planning and Zoning Commission. This evidence included photographs from 1932, which showed where the stones originally lay, and also notes from the 1937 Connecticut Walk Book, which described the cemetery in detail. The Planning and Zoning Commission took this into consideration, and the cemetery was officially designated by the town in January of 2013 as historically significant to the town of East Granby, and a 200-foot ridgeline was set aside by Golosso Quarry to protect the cemetery from encroachment. The town approved Ridgeline Protection Zone in January of 2014 to provide further protection. And soon after that, after 75 years, new memorial stones for Joshua, Ruth, and the Holcomb children were placed on the graves. The installation of these new granite headstones righted the wrong done years ago. Thank you for watching, and as always, have a great day.